All right, so this part is going to talk about greatest common factors. So sometimes before we can factor, but after we've put it in standard form, or at least check that it's in standard form, it makes our life a lot easier to put something or to pull out a greatest common factor. So first, let's talk about what factors are, then we'll talk about the greatest common factor, and then we'll talk about dividing it out. And then you'll do some practice on your own. So factors are numbers or variables that multiply together to give you another number or term. So if we have a number 8, our factors are 1, 2, 4, and 8. So these are all kind of the building blocks of 8. If I have x cubed and x, my factors are x and y. Now I don't need to list the x 3 times because this is the most basic factor. That would be like saying 2 is a factor of 8 multiple times. Well, I just have to say it once. So when we find the greatest common factor, one way to do it is to make a list of all the factors. And so this is the way I'm going to show you. If you have another way to do it that you do it correctly and consistently correctly, then you can do your own method. So I'm going to show this method. We're going to list the factors of each of these terms. Oops, that should be a negative 21. And then we're going to see which they have in common. And in fact, let's not even worry about that negative. We'll just use the 21 that's here. So we'll list the factors of 6, which are 1, 2, 3, and 6. And then I've got an x squared. So we're going to put an x there. All right. Then I'm going to list the factors of 21. I've got 1, 3, 7, and 21. And they have an x. And then I've got 12. And the factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So those are my factors. And now I'm looking for what they all have in common. So you might have noticed that these two have x's, but they don't have them in common with the third one. So I can't pull that out as a greatest common factor. They have 1s and they don't even have 2s in common. I need to pull out the greatest common factor. And you may have noticed the greatest common factor is 3. And that's it. They don't have a variable in common with all 3 of these. Now, if you only had 2 terms, which you will in the example that are to come, then you only need to look at what they have in common, the 2 things. If you have 3 things, you have to look at what all 3 have in common. Okay, so back to what our equation, or in this case an expression, looked like. 6x squared minus 21x plus 12, we've already determined that 3 is your greatest common factor. So I'm going to divide out the 3. So that gets divided by 3, that gets divided by 3, and that gets divided by 3. So when we rewrite this, we're going to put the greatest common factor, or GCF, out front. And then we put what's left over inside, because really this is the reverse of distributive property. So 6x squared divided by 3 is going to be 2x squared. Then we have a minus sign. 21 divided by 3 is 7x. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So 3 was our greatest common factor. When we divided it out, we were left with 2x squared minus 7x plus 4. And that is pulling out the greatest common factor. And now you're going to go back into the Google form and you're going to do the next 2 examples yourself.